commercials. It's a thing that happens in the world. Your kids are going to grow up not knowing them, and the rest of us are like, yes, it's a time capsule to watching.
They'll have YouTube
happen.
ads.
This is why. Yeah, but no, they don't. This is why kids don't play with toys anymore, because there's nothing to sell them. There's no commercials to sell them toys.
How are they going to know about Fabricland if the commercials don't tell them about Fabricland?
How will they know that it's worth
anymore?
How will they know it's worth the drive to Acton if not for commercials? And just so you know, it is definitely not worth the drive to Acton.
Wow, that is on your opinion. The views of Rob do not reflect the views of the other gentlemen on the Heroes World podcast. So that's what it is. I don't know. Maybe the sponsorship's coming from the Acton people, and we don't want to say
old hot house.
I miss the back in the day on the Edge, the extreme fitness commercials, like the song that they sing in the background. There's a lot of classic Canadiana commercials, but anyways, hey everyone, welcome to the Heroes World Quarantine podcast. You heard me sing. That was awkward. Thank you all for joining us again.
For everybody.
I am here with the owners and proprietors of the Heroes World store in Markham, Andre Greenwich and John Ho. Please say hello to the people.
Howdy, folks.
I said your full names today, so huzzah.
Huzzah.
And of course, I always say the full name of this gentleman, the Prince of Mischief himself, Mr. Rob Goodette.
Burnt toast. Doctor, I smell burnt toast.
Oh, those heritage
There's a Canadian Heritage Minute. Sorry,
it's almost as good as the safety video.
They had the Superman one, didn't they?
Yeah.
Yes, they have a Superman video, and they all have
where they're trying to catch the train and stuff like that.
Lois, and he was on the train, and Joe Shuster. Yes.
Get out of here! Tell your cousin I said hi.
It's like, if you don't get out of here fast, it's like, you don't get out of here faster than Speedy. Yeah, faster than Speedy Bullet.
Faster than Speedy Bullet.
That guy was on You Can't Do That on Television. That's why I remember. I'm like, that's the same guy with alumnus Alanis Morissette. Anyways, as we can go on about random Canadian commercials, whether it's heritage or those safety videos with the puppet with the drugs with his real hands that freak people out. Or
the best is the robot. The robot that gets your arm cut off.
I could put my arm back.
Yeah.
Like that was great. They should remake that.
They did, and it was not cool. No, it was not. They did.
They should try again.
They did with CGI.
What's a second remake called? A remake?
A reboot? A reboot?
Yeah. No, I'm just saying you remake. That's the remake. What comes after
John,
that?
We can ask.
I think it's still called a remake because they remade Scarface a couple of times. They're still called remakes.
Yeah,
I feel like it should have a terminology.
We can ask the people that are making Power Rangers because they're rebooting that or remaking it again. So they're going to do a third Power Rangers movie. So we'll see how that works out. So anyway,
they have Ivan Ooze. Ivan Ooze.
I watched
that Apocalypse
I
costume.
watched that movie in the theaters. It had its moments. Okay, so we are here, of course, to go through various topics. Andre's wearing a shirt, so that's future foreseen as to what we're going to talk about later on. But
usually he's topless.
Yeah, usually I don't wear shirts.
Andre's wearing a shirt, so this is a good day.
Don't ruin the show for people that haven't seen the show before. Jeez.
For those audibly, you will be missing the salty sounds of Andre's chest hairs glistening up against the
chest hair.
Come on.
In my dreams, it's more like back hair.
Why are you ruining the Patreon to everyone else who they're going to pay to see this, or his OnlyFans? Leave this alone, all right? Okay, so we are here to talk about WandaVision because we are on episode 8. We are one away. So
the penultimate.
So as we go, Rob, let's start the game first. Tell us what happened in this episode, of course, without ruining it or giving us any positive or negative adjectives.
John, what was the name of the episode?
It was previously on.
Right. When last we saw our heroes, Wanda had been captured by Agatha, which we now know to be Agatha.
We do the whole thing in the voice.
Yeah.
No. In the 1940s, voice.
Yeah.
The radio show.
We saw our daring heroes. Wanda was captured. And she was captured by Agatha Harkness, which we now know to be Agatha Harkness. And there was a bit of a backstory on Agatha from dating back to Salem, Massachusetts, 1683, and we see what type of a witch that she may be. And then it gets into the present day where Agatha is essentially taking Wanda to understand. Agatha wants to know, how does somebody become so powerful? Because you're just a witch. I need to understand where this power set comes from. And we get a history literally moving door to door, kind of like a Scrooged version of WandaVision, going door to door and looking at her history of Wanda's history of when her and her brother, the Stark bomb came in and destroyed their apartment, to where we got this whole notion of these old school television TV shows, and how Vision came to be trapped within this television show. And we progressed. There wasn't a lot of any other character. It really was the Agatha and Wanda show for the most part. So.
Okay, so thank you.
Spoiler free as possible.
That's great. So those of you who have not watched the show, full spoiler alerts. We're gonna go into full detail. It's been a few days. By then, you've probably watched the video already because it came out on Friday, and some of the eager, keen people watched it probably, at 2:00 in the morning. But for the rest of us, you should know what's going on. So, John, spoilers again for the people who have not watched it. And again, if you're watching this podcast right now without watching it, thank you. If you've seen it, then we're going straight into it. So, John, tell us your thoughts, because clearly this is the episode that you've wanted forever. The I don't get it episode. The I have to explain everything to you, John Ho. The episode that tells you everything you need to know about the episode and really says, you don't know? Here's the answers. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so an episode like this, I guess, is necessary if you pull what they did last episode, which is a last-minute villain reveal. I spoke with Pat a little bit, and it's funny that Rob used a Scrooged analogy, and he said, I was like, was this really necessary? And he's like, well, you can't skip straight to the final ghost and have the lesson learned, right? So I'm like, okay, sure, they got to explain all this stuff. The girl who plays Agatha, I forgot what it is, something
Catherine Hahn.
Catherine Hahn, yeah.
She's
pretty good. I think she's pretty good. I don't know if I've seen her in other things.
Bridesmaids,
but she did a really good job.
Was amazing in Chasing Jordan, or that weird autopsy show a while ago, and she's been in a lot of other things. But yeah, she's great.
Yeah, but I don't know. The problem is, again, I'm biased because the show the show is called WandaVision, right? So I'm like, okay, I'm watching a whole episode, which is Wanda's origin. But I like I said, I don't hate this character per se. Elizabeth Olsen is great in the role. She's just not she's not in my kind of wheelhouse. And especially if you start talking witchcraft, which is what this episode is, exposing witchcraft and all that kind of stuff. In my genres of things like witches and stuff like that is probably pretty low on the tier. Sorry, Charmed fans and all that kind of stuff. But
John doesn't believe in magic. That's it. He doesn't like Harry Potter. He doesn't like Doctor Strange. That's it. Magic is for dummies.
To my understanding, is that she is basically bitten by a radioactive witch? Is that basically what they're going to try and say now? She's not. I always thought witchcraft was you practice witchcraft. You get into it, you learn things, and you get into it. But now she's kind of got a natural affinity towards witchcraft, so I guess that's neat. It's not really my genre, like I said, but yeah.
Wait, weren't you just sacrificing goats for a pagan god just last year?
But I wasn't born with that ability, right?
I see. Right,
it wasn't I was just
he had to learn how to sacrifice a goat. He just didn't do it on his own.
You have to read the books and the scripture and find other people who are into it and meet up with them, and then they teach you the ways of the pentagram and all that kind of stuff. Whatever. But I did really like. I think there's one of the jump in scenes. So it does feel like we got a whole bunch of special feature or extended scenes kind of stitched together. The scene with her and Vision, where they're kind of sitting down and she's watching. I think it was Malcolm in the middle, and he's like, are we laughing because that guy was grossly injured? And she's like, no, it's not that kind of show. So all the seeds of what has been happening is being reiterated to us. But the moment where they're kind of sitting around, she's like, well, the only thing I want is to have him back and that kind of stuff. So that I thought that was really cool. And again, Vision in these civilian clothes, I'm finding very hilarious.
He's jacked, bro. He's jacked.
If you put him in a really tight sweater, he's gonna look pretty jacked. But it just looks funny, and it's starting to grow on me. Like this character previously, I don't care about him. but I did miss all the other stuff. Like especially last episode, you end with the Snooper's going to snoop, all that kind of stuff. You don't see any of those characters show up. The fake Pietro doesn't show up.
Pietro,
yeah, Pietro, yeah, that was pretty funny. I thought that was kind of funny. That doesn't show up, and of course Darcy and Jimmy Woo aren't in there. Like almost everybody. Well, you do get the leader of the I want to call it Shield, but I should know because all the branding's all over there. The sword leader guy.
You've been making fun of the branding for like 8 weeks now.
And I forgot because I feel like there was a lack of branding in this episode because like when she goes to that like
the
they have like a big they have a big receptionist desk and she just has to go to the receptionist desk and wait for some guy at a desk to let her in. But that was a cool moment where she had to kind of like see it for herself. So overall,
well, that was the Superman moment, right? It's like Superman is like, it makes him feel better, but that I have handcuffs on. She's like, I could walk through this place and destroy it to grab what I want, but I'm gonna wait because I'm also an Avenger, so I can't. We'll just do whatever I want.
Yeah, so it was a cool notion of the fact that she was like, oh, we came back from winning this endgame fight, and he was just gone. Like so, like that I did feel that. I was like, okay, yeah, that's crazy. You come back, you don't even get to do anything with the body, and then they're like, it's like what, $3 billion worth of vibranium.
It was logically.
And the guy's pretty concerned, but it's not like they paid for it. They didn't pay for it.
No,
but Ultron paid for that, right?
No. But in terms of like the black market, like John, you could just take that bury it, and then dig it up, just like a mother box, and sell it on the black market. So you don't want to just like lying there to be like, by the way, there is a treasure chest out there of $3 billion. You just gotta
2,000 people walk around with metal detectors
looking for it. So it's one of those things where it's like you probably don't want a super weapon as a super bot or killer bot as I think as Bruce mentioned, you lost another killer bot like just on the lam that Hydra could dig up or any AIM could dig out, or Aztec Byzantium, just any of the supervillains could just pick up and be like, yeah, I want that. I'm cool. It just turn into a supervillain. So,
but anyways, yeah. So overall, I thought it was okay. I don't know how they're gonna wrap this up. To be honest, when I'm looking at the list of things that are not quite revealed, finished, it's gonna like I'm not as invested. I'm kind of like I'm watching the show, it's good. But if you are invested, I think it's gonna suck if they don't wrap all this up, or it's left on a cliffhanger and now you have to wait for Doctor Strange 2 whenever the hell that's gonna come out.
To be fair, John, at least there'll be a resolution in terms of a cliffhanger, unlike our beloved Justice League movie that's 4 hours that ends on a cliffhanger that will never be finished. So at least you have that, right? Like it's gonna go on because this Justice League movie is going to end, and then all of a sudden we're going to be
money
like,
talks.
We're going to be we're going to all be those fishes from Finding Nemo, just sitting there. Rob's going to turn to me. He's like, now what? And I'm like, it's like what? We had 4 hours of this. What's next? He's like, nothing. Like, and then we're gonna. That's the future for
comic book adaptation. Probably.
That is us going to, that is exactly what's going to happen in our podcast in like a couple weeks, where we're all going to be like, that was cool. Now what? Nothing happens. So at least we know that Wanda is turning directly to this Doctor Strange movie because, we know she's in it. She's been in London, so at least there's a story through line. So, but you're right. Jimmy Woo's arc needs to resolve. Monica Rambeau, the director of Sword, Agatha, fake Quicksilver.
Fake Pietro, but I feel like that was
two visions
now
that
it's
we have to
confirmed
sort
that's
out.
kind of a throwaway cameo, right?
And
like,
kids.
Everyone was like,
There's
mutants are here. Yeah, but it's not.
Like,
it was just a cameo, right?
7 or 8 through lines that you need, like they can't be all done in like a 2-minute montage. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. All right, your thoughts on the fake or the new Vision, John? Before I jump over to Rob.
It was the most interesting to me because they jump into the current timeline, but I'm not familiar with
were
this.
You like
the white Vision?
Like...
No, I kind of feel like I saw it coming when they pan up, but it did look cool. Look at the West Coast Avengers 45. Rob is holding up.
I just want to as I talk to Rob, I just want to say big ups to the West Coast Avengers, the greatest of all teams. Let's just it's all about West Coast, baby. West Coast. Okay.
Not
Rob.
The Great Lakes Avengers?
Also Great Lakes Avengers. There's also shout out to them too. Rob, go for it,
man. So I have a whole bunch of, I'm going to try to be as concise as possible.
You can go ramble a bit. It's good.
Well, because I do want to touch on the White Vision, but that's
go first. We'll keep you track. White Vision, thoughts?
Well, so at the end of Infinity War, when Thanos pulled out the gemstone, and you saw him turn that interesting shade of gray, I said I think I was watching it with my son, or maybe I was watching with some friends first at the theater. I was like, "Oh my god, it's like they're gonna do the white bit." Like I remember audibly saying, right? Well, because listen, like these are reader copies. I mean, I have these. They're reader copies. They're not, but I read this stuff as a kid. Like I loved it, right? So I was like all hyped for it, and obviously nothing came to fruition in Endgame, and I was like, okay, whatever, and that's done. So to see, to see Vision at the end, first of all, to see him splayed out on the table, just like that issue. I think that would be issue number 44, I believe, of West Coast Avengers. See him splayed out on the table, and you saw Wanda go in there. Interesting thing is when she went to touch him, I don't know if you noticed, but all of the electrons started pulsating and moving, and almost like they were growing a little bit, right? Yep. Between limbs. So to see that at the end, to see him all lit up and looking at himself it's exactly what happened in issue number 45 here, when he steps out of the doors, and he has no memories of who he is or what his life was beforehand. So as a comic nerd for this type of stuff, I'm very excited to see where this goes, and to see how long they keep the ruse up, right? In terms of the story itself, a few things. Admittedly, I thought that the one negative aspect of it is I thought that the production-wise didn't look as intense as. Hang on a second. Close the door. The production didn't look as. My kids are coming in here bugging the shit out of me.
Oh, I thought that was part of the bit. Be like, I thought it was like, oh, and then a Vision was gonna pop by. I'm like, oh my god, there's Paul Bettany.
No, I thought that the way it was filmed, it seemed like a television show. Like it looked like a CW show almost. And I'm not trying to detract from it. All I'm saying is that there's been some production. Like I felt like the episodes have been somewhat not consistent with how it's filmed. I don't know if it's how many frames per second they're filming it in or whatever. To see Agatha, at the beginning, I honestly, it was a reverse Salem witch trial. I thought that they were all humans and they were going to sacrifice her because she was a witch, to find out she was a dark witch in and amongst this covenant of other witches. That was an interesting twist that I personally didn't see coming at the beginning. I
think that they were unsure of her powers, so they thought that she was a dark witch. I think there was just like, your powers are not necessarily in check, so we don't trust you. I think that was more of it.
Like, are you a witch? And then they proceed to zap her with witch powers.
Because she went with like, I'm not bad. I can be good. It's kind of one of those things where I don't know if she was lying. She was
so fake. Well, I think she totally was. I mean, I think that the whole screaming, I don't think she was in pain at all, because she just stopped and she's like, right. I liked the kind of going back a little bit through Wanda's history. I thought that was interesting. The way that they did it, again, was very Scrooge-like. So I thought that was interesting. There's a lot of people online have always complained, like, dude, your brother was like murdered and you've just moved on and you've been an Avenger and not. So I think this kind of addresses some of those, that you can see that has a history of loss and it's been bothering her. How this entire world being constructed in terms of her memories of these TV shows. It was interesting. I mean, there's a lot of people that I know, maybe you guys know, who came to this country, when they were growing up, and who they learned English from watching old TV shows and this and that. They said it helped them. So I understood that aspect.
Here's like the thing is, my grandfather, who came to this country when my parents came here, didn't speak a lick of English. He watched Manchester United football games, and that's how he learned English, and that's why I followed the team, and that's why I like them, because again, it's a lot of like following other countries that speak the language. So I liked, to your point, that moment when they're speaking their native language and like, okay, now it's time to like speak English because it's English speaking time.
Yeah.
Imagine if you are someone that's a dual language now in Toronto or in Canada or in America. That's the reverse, where if you have young kids, you'll make them speak the other language at home, and it's kind of the reverse. So when they're at home, they can only watch maybe things in French, or you only speak to them in French. So it is kind of a nice thing, a nod that is truly what it is like to be multilingual in today's culture. And and English is still the national kind of the touchstone language, but it does make a lot of sense. But yeah, sorry, Rob, go on.
Yeah, no. So I thought that was interesting.
What
here's for me.
Sorry, just to jump to you, Rob, because I wanted you to finish the thoughts on Vision. So this white Vision, you have an expertise in it. Do you think it's more of the Ultron Killbot Vision with no emotions, or is it kind of like Vision with Jarvis and kind of like, I'm not sure what I am? Like, what is the difference between the two outside of their personalities? Because
no, I think that the white Vision that you see is very programmed. I think it was interesting that in replace of the gemstone, it looked very much like one of Tony Stark's arc reactors, like the triangle that he had. But I think that he's been programmed. He will do whatever Sword has essentially told him to do. He will have no memory. I would like to think that Wanda will try to imbue whatever. When she created this world, and you see that yellow glow of the Mind Stone. So let me just kind of backtrack. When that Mind Stone, it breaks apart and she's awash in that yellow, it's almost like she absorbed that. And so I think that when she was creating this world, and you see her exploding and the yellow coming out, and that's how she created her version of the Vision. I would expect that will probably go back into current Vision. At some point. I don't think it's going to be a next episode, but I just kind of want to quickly just talk about like that yellow. I gotta say, when you see the character, like she's almost seeing her future when she's awash in that yellow. For a quick second, I was like, oh my God, is that Miss Marvel? Because like Jean Grey, because it had like the old school, like,
but do you think that is just, do you think because she's in Doctor Strange, that's the future version of herself coming back to imbue herself powers?
Well, I think, no, I don't think it's coming back to imbue her powers. I think that she unlocked, and this will be my final point, is that I think she unlocked something within that to allow her to see her own future. I truly believe that Agatha says at the end when she's got the boys, tied up and, or at least on a puppet strings, and she's like, "You're a myth." I personally think that this is the beginning of mutants in the MCU. I think that when you see her stopping that bomb from going off, it very much reminded me of Magneto reaching out and stopping pulling the gates down with magnetism. Even though she reaches out and then she gets pulled away and she's the older, I was going to say Elizabeth Olsen, but the older Wanda, I think that that's what it was. I think that this would be, and when she says you're supposed to be a myth, I think that she had mutant powers, and then her being awash in this Mind Stone completely, it's almost like when Thor, like when Thor, used the lightning and overpowered Iron Man in the first Avengers, right? So I think that that's what it is. That's why she was able to create this entire world. Her powers are plus 100. Like, she's way off the scale. So that's my hope. My hope is that this is how we get mutants, is that they're supposed to be a myth. And that they weren't, because
the internet, of course, people have zoomed in on that image and can see the costume and can zoom in on that. So it does look like that's her future state. And if she's in Doctor Strange coming back to protect herself or imbue herself with powers.
But how could it be her future self if that was the Reality Stone?
If
or
again,
it's not
I don't
the
know
Reality
how,
Stone, the Mind Stone.
Yeah, but if again,
right,
like, we don't know how the powers. I think, Andre, like we've already talked before, that Marvel's very flexible and timey-wimey and all this stuff. So logically, nothing makes sense.
Flexible is a great way of saying inconsistent.
Yeah, 100%.
Right,
100%.
like that's very liberal, because my first thinking when I saw that scene is, I'm like, oh, this is interesting. Who's this character? Now I didn't pause it or I didn't go on, but I thought, oh, she's seeing something, right? But to me, it never occurred to me that it would be her future self.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? Like that's
it's just like Batman being inconsistent too in the movies about, I won't kill anyone, but you're definitely killing people.
I don't know if that's the same thing, but that's okay. We can.
But yeah, we'll go into it in a second.
Talk for another day, right?
Yeah. Rob.
Yeah. So anyways, overall, just going to finish up. Overall, I liked the episode. I enjoyed it. It left. I'm very happy that we're no longer dealing with a TV show theme. I do, to reiterate what John said, maybe even what And what you've even said is that there is I've used it before. We are running out of runway, and there is a lot to be able to address and deal with. In that final episode, we know that apparently the runtime is 47 minutes, I think, is the last episode. That only gives us an extra 5 minutes. So I don't know how they're going to tie everything up. I get that there's going to be some things that are going to be left to kind of dangling. I would like to think that it's a complete story for the most part, because there's no season 2. But
that we know of.
Well, Kevin Feige said no, that this was only meant to be a one season type thing. So let's see. I'm excited for the end. I think for twofold. One, because I want to see what happens, and two, I'm kind of tired. So I want the episode. I want there to be some type of answers. I'm just worried that we're going to be like, what, doing the Justice League for 4 hours. Like, now we have to wait till 2023 for Doctor Strange. Like, so
they're finishing production soon. It leads into Spider-Man, so we'll get Spider-Man and stuff soon enough, anyways. Because surprisingly enough,
comes out before Doctor Strange.
Yeah, Spider-Man's out this coming December.
Yeah, because Spider-Man just wrapped up production, and then we'll see whether it actually comes out. And then Doctor Strange doesn't finish till, I think it's just wrapping up soon as well.
So it was delayed. They started production back in October, and then they had to shut down for like 6 weeks.
Although we do know that the same regular cast of characters, Bruce Campbell was like, created, hey guys, I'm in an undisclosed location working with an undisclosed director working on a really cool project. What could it be? I'm here
Army
in London.
of the Dead 2.
It's like, there we go. Darkman 2, yes, in London. So there are things, but nonetheless, Andre, let's get to you. What are your thoughts on this episode?
So not the direction I would have gone in to make this episode. I think going back, we've talked about rewatchability and stuff, and I think part of it's, for me, this is only my opinion, I think it's really sad that you could boil down whatever this show is going to be to just watching this episode and maybe what the last episode is. I think if they interspersed a lot of those cutscenes as flashbacks throughout the rest of the show, it would have made for a way better show. I can't remember the movie or what movie it was, but I remember watching one of the Underworld movies, and about an hour and a half in, they realized that they didn't tell you what was going on. So they had the guy who was like a cross between a vampire and a werewolf, and somebody sat him in a chair and explained the whole history to them. And I'm like, well, that would have been great if we had known this before. And that's what this episode feels like. It's like, we haven't shown the fans anything, or the audience. Let's get them up to speed. Right. So that in itself didn't work for me. However, there was some really great moments in this episode. Again, Olsen's acting was really, really great. John mentioned that scene with Vision. Loved it. Give me that. Give me what she's doing in America when she first comes, and she's basically not quarantined, but almost in prison in that mansion. She can't do it.
She's stuck in that room. He has to phase through the door, and I'm like, oh, that's crazy. She was locked in this room watching like
things. That was
cruel fate.
That was fantastic. Just seeing that scene where she's experimented on, and like it was like just very good. Like her emotions, her acting was I thought was on point. The Agatha Harkness magic part, I wasn't really digging that. Like it wasn't explained enough. Like you said, she's almost pleading to her mom, and then her mom zaps her, and then she's like, I'm out of here. You know what I mean? Like, all of a sudden she had enough power. Like, I didn't follow what they were getting at, but I did understand that she stole their life force, and that maybe is why she's still alive today. I did like how she walked into Sword, and I did like the line dropped by Hayward as he's like, oh, you're not here to use your power to bring this guy back to life. So if that's not foreshadowing to him being somebody else, then that's the dumbest line, because he's got no idea what her power set is. This leads to the White Vision at the end, who is clearly a remake of those parts that we've seen, because Wanda did not leave with Vision. She just went to that location. And I got to say, I love that moment, because Vision obviously bought her a plot of land and was going to build her a house. Again, I love these character moments that we get it here. Why are we getting it after 8 episodes, 8 weeks?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like all this other, like all the other episodes, pardon my French, is bullshit. You know what I mean? It's like a waste of time indulgence to get to these moments. I'm like, if you had these moments in,
that was gut wrenching in the house.
You know, like, yeah, like that was like with that the raw emotion coming out of her. And like when you see, yes, it's loss after loss after loss, you know, when Harkness is talking about magic, right? So this is going to be one of the things I did not like. I think the MCU did a very good job of making magic extremely cool and different in Doctor Strange. Okay, remember they had to have the rings and they have to have these totems to harness their power, right? At that moment, I didn't get the thought that was just a particular school of magic, because there was tons of magic users and they all had those rings. You know what I mean? So to me, I'm like, oh, this is how they're rebranding magic, right? This is what magic is going to be in this universe.
Andre, the ring is only for the sling ring to open the portals. You don't need a ring to do magic. Yeah. So the ring is only to create the portal to walk through. So that's the portal.
But the portal wasn't just about getting somewhere. They used the portals for everything. They used it for fighting. They used it to, you know what I mean? So I think that was an integral lesson to be learned. Like they weren't just drawing runes like Agatha Harkness was, you know what I mean? So I thought that was a conscious effort. Like, look, even they had the buildings, you know, like Inception and all that. I thought it was a different way. So cool. They want to bring in this type of other magic. That's great. So it seems like this is like, hey, we got to retcon regular magic in. How do we do that? I think it's...
Well, she does have the pendant that she wears, so we haven't really because they all have the little pendant, but they haven't talked about it.
But I think, I think it's kind of, I don't want to use the word a lazy retcon, but it's almost like they admit that they screwed up when they made Scarlet Witch, and now they're going to retcon her to be the Scarlet Witch, so we have to get magic. I don't like this idea that she's, like John said, she's just born into magic. She always had it. I'm like, well, that doesn't make any sense. And then she doesn't know a spell. She does, like, if she's innate magic, then those weren't her parents. They have to come from something. Yeah. Right. You can't retcon that Magneto was her parents. And even in comics now, I don't even know if Magneto's, you know, her parent. But when Agatha says, oh, you're supposed to be a myth, the Scarlet Witch who has the power to do this, like, yeah, that would have been great to explain. It's like, it's unfortunate, like in Star Wars, where they talk about you're the prophecy who will bring balance of the Force. You don't get to know what that means until Clone Wars, unfortunately, but they do get to it, right? So, you know, just if this show is just about getting her to be called the Scarlet Witch, like, oh, we wasted everybody's time so that we now have her as a code name, so we don't have to call her Wanda, you know, and stuff. So I don't know, as Rob says, I don't know how they're ending this thing. Yeah. Right? Like
to your point, Andre, it's very similar to Star Wars, where Rey just had powers, and you're like, how do you use the Force? How do you know this stuff? You have it and you have it. So it's like, well, what about all the training that's required? Because again, to your point, for magic, it takes a lot of work. You gotta know what you're doing. You have training, you have stuff, but basically,
and you have we saw Doctor Strange put in that work, and they were all amazed at how fast he was able to do it, right? But like even with this, like, you know, I think even if she was born to it, and if it's your theory, maybe I don't know how old she was when they were watching that show, but maybe when she got to that experiment, she actually hit puberty as well, like mutation. But listen, they're changing everything, so we see that's the problem. It's almost like you have to throw out all what you know about comics or about, you know, whatever, when you see this is a different iteration, and that is my hardest thing to do, because I've read this stuff for so long. I don't know everything, right? But you know, I know a lot. So when I see these different versions, it's hard for me to separate the two, follow which way they're going. And now they did like quite a U-turn. Now they're like, oh no, we're gonna get you that she's the Scarlet Witch and it's chaos magic now. Okay. Right. And then we had this great epilogue scene in Doctor Strange where Mordo is like, I'm going to hunt down magic users and take that power. I guess we haven't seen him come across Agatha Harkness or go after witches or whatever. So I know they're kind of retconning and sliding in, but to me, if you want this boat to be tight, airtight, there should be people saying, hey, you know, what about what about Mortal? Like, can we put a flashback there, because we really slam that home that he's going after magic to use for his own way. How would the Ancient One not have known about her power? Or is Agatha Harkness kind of insignificant, yet she was able to bring Scarlet Witch, who's super strong, through these different
it's all in her mind
periods.
though. It's all in her mind.
Right. And
it was all in her mind. I really think that you've got a couple things, Andre, to follow up what you said. One is that I think you have different levels of hockey teams. You have different levels of baseball teams. So I think that you can have the Doctor Strange magic being like the, major leagues, and Agatha Harkness is, more of the A team. It's a different skill set of magic that she's using. You have magicians and you have illusionists.
I think, Rob, the comparable is different sports leagues. They're both professional. It's like one is a professional baseball player, one's a professional hockey player. They just have different skill sets. They're both
but they should know about each other. You would think that, and I know this is retconning.
Andre,
I know it's a hard thing because they didn't know everything. I'm just saying, like, at this point, I think Andre really feels like.
We've set the bar up years ago when you and I have discussed before. They're going by the seat of their pants. The whole Infinity Stones was basically, hey, we saw this opportunity and we're retconning and changing things on the fly. That's fine. Marvel gets to do that. And, we can both agree. The Infinity Stones in the beginning, when they were like, oh, Thanos, Thanos was never part of the plan. It just fell on their laps. Like, oh, I guess we can do Thanos. And we're going to call, the cosmic cube, it's going to actually be something else, and this is going to be something else, and the ether is going to be the reality stone. Like, they've done it time and time again and made it adjustments to what makes sense for their cinematic universe. And that's the thing, we know this is a different, it's not the 616. If you want to read comic books, that's what it is. This is just a different universe compared to Miles Morales and the Ultimates. The Ultimates also pulled some things too, but they made Nick Fury black, and that's different. So I'm happy with them doing the change, because I still have the comic knowledge and I have the Ultimates knowledge, which is also a universe that no longer exists. So it's one of those things where I think that they are correct. You are correct. They are constantly audibling. But if you are creative or writer director, you kind of want that ambiguity to do your imprint and do something else different. I think they learned their lessons when they split with because there was the article of a little while ago that came out about the guy, that Baby Driver, what's his name, the director,
Edgar Wright.
Edgar Wright, where he talked about how he hasn't talked to Kevin Feige till this year. Like, after they split from that movie and he wanted to do something his way, he reached out to Kevin Feige and be like, because they were friends beforehand, and then once they stopped doing that Marvel, they just didn't talk to each other because there was some hard feelings, I guess, in between. And Edgar reached out to Kevin Feige to write something for Empire magazine, that comic cover that came out. And Kevin Feige wrote something really nice, and they started talking again. And that's the thing, where if a director wants some flexibility and Marvel's like, no, you can't, then this is where also you kind of hit a wall where you want a little bit of change and you want to imprint what you want to do. And it happened with Black Panther, happened with all these movies, where if you get a little bit of to imprint what you want, it's going to always be different. It's just like how the comic book writers made changes as well.
But I guess maybe, and well, you guys all know this. I guess maybe I'm the devil's advocate for the MCU, because everybody praises what they do and says, oh, this is the greatest thing, and they poo-poo so many other things. Yet here, these guys, like you said, they're making it up on the fly. To me, if they sat and did that big whiteboard, you would be able to see it and feel it, and they say, "Hey, we want to get."
I think they have that, Andre. I think they have a plan. Listen,
I don't think it's as tight as it could be. How about that? I don't think it's as tight as it could be.
Agreed. But if we stick to the comic history, here's the bigger damnation, Andre. Here's the bigger thing. Marvel is like a B student, and that's been ahead of this process. They've been doing it for a long time. The bigger damnation is DC. How did they have They could have done everything correctly and had way more time. They had all this time to figure it out. Like, oh, Marvel did it. We can be a tighter ship. We can do things the right way. And they fell even more flat on their face. So really, as much as we're complaining about Marvel, we should really be poking at DC going, how did you guys mess this up?
That's the thing. You don't poke the guy that's at second place. You poke the guy who's in first place and should be and has the gold to do everything better. Right? Like, listen, I'll agree with you. DC hasn't made, as good of, films and stuff like that. However, right? Maybe I don't know, with all the talk going on with DC and AT&T and Warner, maybe they never really had that true support, right? So, but we'll get into that later, I'm sure.
Yeah. Listen, if we go to the comics, you know, and they have to make changes. We all know that Vision was originally implanted with Wonder Man's brainwaves. That's how he became, right? So they obviously had to change things. Two things that Andre mentioned that that stuck out is, Andre's right. That throwaway line from Hayward was, you know, when he suggested, "You're not here to steal the body," of course, like that. Agatha also made suggestions about, so she seems really pliable. Like, she seems to fall prey to suggestive lines that almost alter her way of thinking of things, which I thought was really interesting. The other thing is, Andre also said about how great Elizabeth Olsen is. Give her the Emmy. I think she did an amazing job. But I gotta tell you, this episode for me, seeing Vision sitting on that bed with her, and it goes back to I think it was Civil War, where she was kind of stuck in the room. And he says that, I wrote this line, right. And I wrote this line down because she was talking about losing things, her family and this and that. And he says, I don't know, I've never had anybody that I've ever lost, you know, but he goes, what is grief if not love persevering? Like, his delivery of that, you just felt like you were like, what a great line. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I just think it really summed up Vision as a character of somebody who has no preconceived notion of things because he doesn't exist. He has no memory before a week ago, and he's, you know, making these profound statements. So I think both of them did an amazing job.
Yeah, but
sorry,
can I jump in for 2 seconds? Yeah. So you know, this is one of the things that I don't kind of get about, like, because we're talking about the changes that the MCU made. Like, I understand that the Vision was an Avenger, and maybe that's why they wanted to get to him. But if you go back and you watch that movie where he's created, the whole point was they were trying to create a body for Tony Stark because his body was failing. And if you wanted to put the gem on somebody, why didn't they use that as Adam Warlock?
What are you talking about?
No, they didn't.
Comics?
No, that
in the comic. Remember
in the movie,
in the Avengers movie. Avengers 2.
They were making the skin. Remember, they had tested out the skin on Hawkeye because he had the skin grafting. So what it was,
so why were they making the robot body?
Ultron.
Why were they making the robot body?
Ultron was making it because they had the ability to craft skin. So Ultron was actually making the body because he wanted to put himself into that vibranium.
And that's why the consciousness was trying to reverse in when he transferred his consciousness.
So either way, like, I guess so. Yeah, I don't know. I just always thought the character of Vision should have been Adam Warlock, and then you could have gotten.
But we have Adam Warlock. We have him in the next movie. So we
have a reference to him
too,
right?
He has the pod. You have the pod.
He's got
I call him Adam. Like, it's pretty much clear as day, Andre. Like,
right, but again, what I'm saying is they made this change to have Vision, to have this gem, which he never did, right?
Yep.
And have that throwaway line that this guy calls him Adam. Nobody but us got it. If you don't see it, it's you know, like, whatever. Yeah. And then you could have had, so yes, you wouldn't get this Wanda and Vision love story, but you also wouldn't get like that changes everything. Whereas if you had Adam Warlock in this particular part, or he gets created because the gem imbues that life or whatever, it makes everything grander. And you could be doing a story right now with the two same characters.
We lose Paul Bettany, and I'm not for that, Andre.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Anyways,
we lose the Paul Bettany Vision.
So
that's the thing about WandaVision is it's the relationship with the two, and then the kids and all the other stuff that happens. So if it was
I get it, but it's such a huge change that I think when they change these things so big, that's when they're tying themselves in knots to undo it and go, oh crap, how do we do this now? Right. Wow. So it's one of these things. It's like it's like, oh, hey, yeah, we'll do this now. And then later they're like, oh, crap, we shouldn't have done that. But you can't change it. Right. Because they've done it. So they've got it. So they've now got to go forward and find a way now to bring Vision back. And now to bring Vision back. Now they say, oh, well, Scarlet Witch is clearly strong enough to bring back the dead, or to whatever, use the Mind Stone to free his mind or whatever. Right. But
we should use the Mind Stone to free John Ho's mind, because he looks like he's zoned out about 25 minutes ago.
I was gonna get John back in the conversation. Thanks for that, but you know, he looks deeper.
No, like I said, these characters are not my wheelhouse.
But you can have it.
Sorry, can you make that circular motion again so we understand?
Can you do it like Doctor Strange with the ring, as Andre said? Can you do it that way?
I should probably watch the rest of that movie.
Oh my gosh.
Like I said, magic is not.
We're going to replace you with Pat at this standpoint. You're going to be out of this podcast.
I volunteered him because he is actually so down with this show.
We should, yeah. For next,
can I ask a question? Like, are you
go for it, Andre?
The Rob and Stu, like, are you still happy with the flow? Like, I know Stu, you really like this show, but did you really feel like the flow of the last 2 episodes, like? Yeah, I don't know.
I like it. I think at the end of the day, comparable to.
Can I interject for 1 second? But when you say like, can you give it a scale? Like as much as what? Because I think maybe that's my problem. I don't think the show is horrible, but when I say something is good, maybe I mean something is great. Like, what's your scale? Like, is it good 5 out of 10, or is it 7 out of 10?
7.
Is it determined on the final episode though, as well?
Or is it Lost good for Rob? Is it like, you know, Supernatural better? Like, you know what I mean?
Oh,
like,
Andre, don't even get started on Supernatural.
No, I'm
because
just
that
saying,
was a falling scale. Because Supernatural
like,
season 1 to 5 is like a 10, and then from season 6 onwards, it's like a 6 because I just have to watch it
to season 24.
Yeah, like it's not good Supernatural after, and we can both agree. Like, there's like 3 episodes a year where you're like, oh, this is awesome. The first episode, the last episode, and the joke episode in Supernatural, and the rest of it's just slogging through it. I don't feel like I'm slogging in watching WandaVision. I feel like, to your point, like it's slowly unveiling things to me. And each time they're doing something different and giving me a different perspective. This episode alone, like we talked about it over and over, the feels you get by the 2 of them, and what John said before, how he didn't understand, you know, how they could be together, and the 2 characters, like you get a lot from them in this episode, more so than any other Marvel characters. Like, I get that they're
what if the final episode is a complete flop though? Would it change? Is it going to change your opinion and go, it wasn't worth it?
At the end of the day, like some of the Marvel movies and some of the DC movies have moments in it that I still will watch, and they still some of them fall flat. Like Wonder Woman's still a good movie, but like the last boss, Ares, is flat. Like it's bad. Like giant CGI monster, okay. Like, but like until that point, it's a perfect movie until it gets to Act 3. Like I would watch Wonder Woman all the time until they get to that base and fast forward. I'm like, okay, we're good. Like
text pops up, and then she
until Steve dies, and you're like, I'm done. Movie's over.
This is amazing. And I'm like, more Chris Pine, and then boom. Like
you can cut it right there when he saves the day and dies.
That's right. And then the movie's end.
Honestly, they're establishing a relationship and character of those 2 having that moment on that bed shows why she fell in love with Vision, and why out of all the relationships, like outside of like Tony and you know, Pepper, like they're the most interesting couple out of everyone. Like everyone else, like I watch Evangeline Lilly and like Scott Lang, like the 2 of them kind of together, and there's a chemistry that you can see. They're like, oh, I get why they're together, more so than when Steve Rogers was kissing Sharon Carter. I'm like, okay, cool, that's whatever. Like this is your new girlfriend because your other girlfriend is no longer alive. There's some moments of it, and you can see why she's willing to break the rules and everything, and basically have people suffer for Vision. It's like, you just need to know why. It may not be the right reason. Like a lot of things in life, there are people doing stuff that's not for the real, as the reality show, you're not here for the right reasons. But like in terms of like, we'll see what happens in the next episode. You know, there were rumors that there were going to be 2 episodes next week because the French Twitter account's like 2 more episodes, and everyone's like 2 more episodes, and then I'm like, no.
But that's funny, like a typo or like little things get turned into these overblown Easter eggs because people are so starved for something to happen. Like I can't think of another show other than maybe Lost that kind of banked on this mystery idea. Like, so maybe I don't know if Andre, what you're trying to say is maybe if they didn't go for this gimmick and they just told the story instead of trying to hold it all back, maybe it would have been a better.
But that's everything on YouTube now. There are 7 channels that go through Easter eggs of every.
But like, that's what I'm saying. They did it to create that content, and
that's what it is, right?
But also too, like, you know, and I don't want to. Maybe I'm missing it, but the one thing I keep thinking of this particular show is I'm like, what's the plot of WandaVision? And I don't know it. Now, maybe it's because I'm not enjoying it, but like I don't, or maybe I'm in this, you know, pandemic funk and my mind hasn't been right through doing this thing or whatever, but I literally don't know what they're trying to accomplish until this episode where it now gets revealed. And I'm like, I just spent 8 weeks and they could have dropped this. And they still, at the end, I still don't know what the plot is. Is the plot like, you know what I mean? Like I don't want to say what the point is, because you can have a show with no point, and that is part of a plot. But this particular one, I'm like,
Andre, it's a show about nothing. Just
no, but Andre makes a good point. To answer his question about the pacing, I think that it then ties into his question about what's the point. It really is, what's the point of the plot of this show? The pacing is always, and I've always been honest, I found like this episode should have been last week's episode. These episodes, it shouldn't have been I know we're going to be 8 weeks overall because we had a double episode at the beginning, but it shouldn't have been so dragged out the way it has been. The point of this whole entire series is you're going to get a backstory of Wanda to understand, because I think that they're obviously explaining why she is one of the most powerful characters in the MCU. You're expanding on the Vision. You're expanding on the history of Agatha Harkness. And we just got Photon. Like, they introduced, you know, Monica Rambeau without having to shoehorn her into Captain Marvel 2 to give her powers. She is now going to be entering into that movie with her power set already there, because she just got them in this show. So they are obviously laying a foundation for what's to come, much like how we all said the same with Avengers 2. The Avengers 2 was just laying a foundation for things to come in the future. It may not be a solid movie on in itself, but some of its parts you can understand. So I think that was the kind of the purpose of this show, was to give people, to whet people's appetite before the next phase, but to also lay a foundation for things to come in future Marvel properties.
And to Rob's point, it's grieving. It's about a person that has loss, has the power to change reality to what she wants. This is the basic story. If you had to break it down, a person lost their partner and wants them back. That's it. The next series is basically about two guys who are dealing with loss and who
want to lose each other.
Who's going to be Captain America? Like, that's the next show. Like, who wants to be Captain America? Like,
but see, like I said, that to me is like,
but that's more clear cut, because it's just, that's like, you don't have magic.
Who's going to carry the mantle, right? Like, that's the thing. I understand what Rob's saying is like, hey, they want to throw this stuff down, but again, and I, like I said, I've just said I like all the character and that stuff, but like, how many hours is the show going to be? 6 hours.
It's less,
for us to get to know that Scarlet Witch has this power set. Like, I would take 6 hours of somebody else. Like, we got Captain America's origin in the first 45 to an hour of first Avenger. You know what I mean? Like so again, we saw the pacing, and maybe they did want to try something new, but like,
I think, Andre, to answer your question, we'll have to almost do a dive after the end of the next, like the finale, to really then look back and say, this is an experiment. Was it successful? Was it mediocre? Or was it shit? And I think that's the only way we can fairly determine whether or not this was a good run. You and I have agreed on a lot of things about the show. You can maybe grab out of these 9 episodes. There's, you know, I probably, if I'm assuming next week's going to be all right, 3.5 episodes is really all you need to watch to prepare yourself for the next wave of movies. I know Stu's going to rewatch the whole season, because he's already been very honest. He's like, I'm going to watch front to back again. That's great. I won't. There's only a few episodes that I want to watch. This show has no rewatchability, and I use that on the kid that sits next to me when I watch it, the 12-year-old. He has no desire to rewatch this episode. In fact, I rewatched it last night, and he walked by me and goes, why are you watching that? So I said, because Stu's going to make me do a summary, and I have to make sure I know what the hell's going on.
Yeah, and here's and to your point, Rob, you're 100% correct. But they did say that WandaVision, from the rating standpoint, is now the most watched TV show on the planet.
That means nothing, Stu. We're in a pandemic. There's nothing else new being.
To be fair, yes. To be fair, the show is geared towards, I guess, some maybe normies that are watching it. Again, we don't know what the people are still watching it, so I guess it's Like people would have dropped off if they didn't.
Tiger King was the most watched program, those 6 episodes back in April and May of 2020, and that crashed Netflix.
But there are other shows.
All things being relative, no pun intended with the show.
There are network shows back, like This Is Us is going on. There are other TV shows back in production that are streaming right now. Yeah. Like if that was the case and the show was that bad, well then Superman and Lois, which we'll talk about momentarily, should have destroyed it in the ratings because there's nothing to watch.
I think the problem with those arguments, and I don't want to get down this rabbit hole, but the problem with that is that there's so many quote unquote cord cutters that people don't watch conventional television anymore. So I think comparing a streaming show to something that's to conventional broadcast television, you can't do it. That's why you could never back in the 90s compare HBO to broadcast shows. You couldn't compare The Wire. As great as The Wire, I love The Wire, but you can't say it was accurately competitive with Seinfeld because there's a whole different, people weren't paying for HBO as much as you were getting your broadcast channels as part of your overall capital. Okay. So at any rate.
No, I'm going to jump off to the next thing. But here's the thing about this show. The legacy is they tried something different. If Elizabeth Olsen and Paul Bettany get nominated for awards, and maybe if Elizabeth Olsen actually wins something, that is a new level bar for Marvel in terms of like, yes, there's not much going on, but there's still other shows. And if she can somehow manage to get that, that is, DC always has a feather in a cap where it's won 2 Oscars for acting. That's something that never happens in Marvel. Like they don't get nominated outside special effects. So if that pushes the genre to make it better, and then that's great. Like that's something that we can look forward to.
On a slightly side note, because I don't watch a ton of TV, is her performance that good compared to other people on TV right now? Like I don't know because I'm not watching a lot of other television.
Well, remember how the process, how it works, Andre, for those who are uninitiated, is that when you submit 1 episode to the Academy. So you pick, even though it's 26 episodes, you pick the best episode, and the production company will pick that one and be like, this performance of an actor is the best one of that series. We're going to submit that to the Academy, and the Academy will use that because they're not going to say you have to watch all 26 episodes to determine best actor. They say, here's the episode that we think this person is the best at. Then they use that as the litmus and review it to everyone else.
So what episode are you guys submitting for WandaVision then?
Great question. This episode might be the one. This episode 8 might be the one that she.
You might have to wait for the final episode.
Well, but here's the thing: the final episode is going to be a lot of. That's a good point. A lot of weapons and fighting and like stuff. But this one, where she's going through loss and going through other things like this, may be her acting tour de force, as in like dramatic acting. But it depends on the category. If they put her in for comedy, then because of the other episodes, like the first 2, technically.
Can you? So you couldn't submit for 2 different ones, then you'd have to say.
You can.
But then she could be nominated for drama and for comedy.
Okay, so then you would submit the drama episode and then the
I think they probably could do that.
Oh, that's a good. So see that maybe that's why they experimented like that.
But I think we discussed before, Andre. If you're an actor and you're like, here's the part, Andre, where you get to do 7 different things and you get to be different accents, and like you're gonna sign up for this. Like this is how Marvel totally gets you to be like in these movies and be like, oh, by the way, this is something fun for you, and your kids can watch it too. That's how they got Glenn Close. That's how they got everyone, right?
I get it, but also too I like watching Orphan Black.
Yeah,
I didn't I should have dug the show, but I didn't watch the show for anything but Tatiana Mussolini. And when Maslany.
Mussolini's different.
Mussolini, yeah. She's got even better heritage. No. She's got even better heritage. Maslany.
Yeah.
Like that, seeing her play those different roles
was amazing.
It was like one of those things that how did she not win every year?
Yeah.
So, but that to me, when I see her, there's second to none. So right now, like I do enjoy her performance for Elizabeth Olsen, but I don't think she had roles to sink her teeth into previous than this. So I don't know if
to your point,
again, but I might have to check out other things.
To your point, Andre, the stigma was there for science fiction and like Star Trek, all the shows we love, science fiction never really get nominated because it's the HBO prestige. Unless you're HBO Game of Thrones, and if you got laser guns, you're pretty much out. If you're a superhero, you never get nominated for that type of stuff. But because of the pandemic and what's available to you, this may force their hand to be like, oh, this show is actually good. We're going to accept it. And if that opens up the avenue for, to your point, better writing and better storylines and better actors, then we're all greater for it. We just don't know right now, because typically it's, as we love it, it's Allison Janney. Every single time she did West Wing, it's like automatic, just book it. She's in. It's like, the West Wing, like how many actors from the West Wing are going to be nominated for an Emmy? Line them up. Like they basically had like 7 nominations every year, because one, that show was a powerhouse, and like actors or John Hamm, Bryan Cranston, like it was almost inobtainable to like catch these guys, because they're 6 episodes and they're tremendous actors. So like we'll see what happens. Like again, if this opens up the genre, because we've heard time and time again from Spielberg and Lucas that this is like the Western genre. Like, oh, it'll be hot now, but in 10 years, no one will care about superheroes. They have to try something different, and they have to do it, because again, there was a time when you got nominated for an Oscar for a Best Western, and now that no longer exists, right? So,
but they wouldn't have taken a chance on this if it wasn't for the power of Elizabeth Olsen as an actress. I think this would have been a whole different show. And she, in all honesty, I think her and Paul Bettany, their chemistry, but their acting, really sold this show as what it is. So yeah,
I don't know. I
don't know what other. Listen. As much as Scarlett Johansson is, do you think that if they had swapped out roles and she was Scarlet Witch, do you think she would have been able to carry this the same way?
She could have done it. I don't know, because she was great in that Joseph Gordon-Levitt movie where she played the
yeah, no, she was good in a lot. I'm just one, like, it's a whole different.
But Rob, John, this could be my ignorance though, but like from what. I guess they know these actors going in, but from their performances in their Avengers movies and their Marvel movies, I wouldn't have banked a show on these two. No way. But maybe they saw something else. But I'm just saying, they knew they wanted to do this show, so they did it. And they knew they had the means to make that these actors had potential. But I don't think they're like, oh, boom, these are our 2 best actors. Let's put them in a show.
I think to Andre's point, they probably didn't say these are the best 2, but frankly, these are not movie stars that they're going to ask for too much money. They probably did it for cost purposes either. Like, they're not going to get Chris Evans to do a TV show, because Chris Evans is, I want to do movies and maybe I'll do a prestige TV show. But like, you're not going to get Mark Ruffalo to do a full 8-season episode. So a series. To your point, Andre, has to be, these 2 are available. They're probably cheaper than what we'd have to pay for. It's kind of like Anthony Mackie and Sebastian Stan. It's like, these guys are probably cheap. Let's get them. Like, well, you know, probably do a movie.
It'd be cool though if they did use Ruffalo, because since there's all that movie stuff, you can't get a Hulk movie. It'd be nice to see Hulk in, like, to be honest,
he's gonna be in She-Hulk. I think that has to happen. He's gonna be in it, right? Yeah.
I would have seen like a little mini series of Ruffalo and Black Widow. Like, let's see the behind the scenes on how they got romantically hitched. That could be a funny, like John says, a romantic comedy within the Marvel set right before she died. Like, that would have been a 4-episode, lots of fun, right?
Yeah, but Scarlett Johansson's way too much money. Like,
no, because you want to know why? All you're going to want to know is you're going to want to see some type of a coital scene between the Hulk and Black Widow, and it's going to you don't want to see that. So
no.
So so I think there's a mixture of things that make it where, like right now, Chris Evans probably wouldn't do, or Chris Helmsworth wouldn't do a TV show, but he'll still continue doing Thor movies because he does movies. So I think it's just a lot about contracts, money, and availability, because he's doing a bunch of other things and he's a movie star. So it just, that's what it is. Okay, that was a lot of talk, but we are very passionate and we know a lot and we care a lot. So thank you for bearing with us. As we jump to our next topic, I've spoken with Andre. Tell us what's going on. Tell us what's cool, what's hip. What is your recommendation for us this week?
Can I make a slight request? Can we do the I have spoken after we talk about?
Sure.
Superman?
Yeah.
All right. It just might be. Okay, sure. All right. So we're going to go straight into a review of Superman and Lois, because I was hoping that would be a nice break of something else, because now we're going back and deep into a discussion.
Or I can do 2 I have spoken.
No, you only get one. You only get one. Yeah, I have spoken doesn't make sense.
Let's make this review.
You don't get to do 2 I have spoken.
Okay, we can play some Jeopardy. Hold on a second.
Okay, John, here we go, John. Break it up, John. So, Okay, I'm not.
In fact, I went to the store yesterday and somebody said, "John, I hope you don't break out the Jeopardy question."
All right, here we go. So we're gonna talk about Superman and Lois. If you haven't watched it, please go watch it. We're not gonna do the summary because we're not gonna watch this consecutively. This is only a one-off to watch the pilot. So please note, we're only talking about the pilot. We may not talk about the show ever again. But John, give us your thoughts on Superman and Lois.
Okay, Superman and Lois. So what I liked, I really like giving Superman some things that he can't punch his way out of, which is, we're spoiler, right?
Yeah,
death.
Spoiler.
His father passed away, his mother passed away. He can't do anything about it. He's kind of powerless to do that. And then the whole relationship with his family, raising his kids and keeping the secret from them originally, and not wanting to lose them or push them away. Like I thought that was really real, but I don't know if that's just I don't know if I just feel that because I'm also a father, right? There were its share of silly moments, some very CW stuff, but overall, as if you were to rate this as a CW show, I definitely feel like it's got a very different feel to it. So much so that I did shoot someone a message and go, "Is this a CW show or is this another network show that's attached to it or something?" So lighting, angles, I think some of the other guys will talk more about the nitty gritty of that. But they did have some funny writing choices, like the router in the barn made me laugh. Why do you have this router in the, I don't work on a farm. Maybe that's where you put a router. But I thought it was just kind of funny how he's
it's as Andre would say, bad writing. But carry on.
Yeah. You could have just. I was like, yo, dude, pull the plug. It's plugged in somewhere on the floor. Pull the plug, and that resets your router, right?
yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah, but that barn is like the kryptonite of this show, where all the bad writing originates around the barn, and then later they go hunting for the ship, and the ship discovery is just silly. Like they use the crappiest lock ever on the planet to lock the ship.
Isn't the ship in the Fortress of Solitude? Like, why is it still there? Like, weren't they already
what he should have done is he should have dissolved the ship like in Superman 4 with his special Superman power that melts the ship, and then he just takes the crystal out. So we don't know what that crystal out is that he took out of it. I thought it was going to be a Smallville moment where it was like red kryptonite and it's gonna do everything, but everything like that, and maybe the muscle suit. My biggest issues. The muscle suit was a little bit too exaggerated, I felt.
For the first costume or the second costume?
Both of them. But the first costume was cool.
It was dope.
I think that's the first time you've ever seen that suit on screen. Yeah. And then when he picks up the car, I'm like, why is this car so friggin' green? But it's a throwback to that old Action Comics.
It's fan service, right? So, yes.
Yeah. I was like, okay, now I get it. But
I did like. Did you like the joke about the mom thing? That was great.
Yeah, mom made the suit for me or something like that. Like this guy, like he's not your traditional looking Superman, but I think he's gonna bring a little bit of like that Christopher Reeve type thing to it. Although his Clark Kent is like way too cool to ever come close to the clumsy Christopher Reeve version. But
he's not a comedic actor. It's a different
thing. Yeah.
But because they talk about him tripping, but they never show him, as opposed to Christopher Reeves. They show him constantly.
Yeah, he would actually like physically do it and stuff like that.
Because the sons would be like, "Oh, Dad can't do it because he fell doing this," and I'm like, "Did he fall?" Like, yeah.
So I think the key is going to be those two kids. If those guys, like, as far as kids,
did you like?
I thought they were okay.
Jordan and Jonathan.
I thought they were fine.
Are you biased because you're Jonathan?
Yeah, maybe.
He didn't even realize that until just now.
Is that your favorite, Jonathan? Is Jonathan your favorite? Can you? Because we all, you don't love one kid more than the other one, but secretly, is Jonathan your favorite? No one's
like which one is Jonathan? Is he the one with the long hair?
No, that's Jordan.
No, he was the blonde one.
Jonathan is the quarterback who's just like happy-go-lucky.
Yeah.
Jordan
that guy is your stereotypical all-American kid type role. I actually kind of like the other son because he was like Rob described. I don't know if it was recorded in the chat or not, where Clark comes home from being Superman and he like kind of wants to hang with his son or talk with him. And the son's kind of like, hey, turn my music back up and get out.
John, were you just spoiled because he's playing Mortal Kombat? Is that really what it's all about? Like you're like,
it was Injustice.
I think that
was Injustice.
Like, wait,
yeah, like Raiden. I was like,
I'm Raiden. Superman.
The moment I saw that, I'm like, John's gonna pick Jordan. He's like, Superman's boring. I'm Raiden. I was like, oh my god.
But that was just funny how he's basically like got like the toughest day job, and then comes home and it's just struggling at home. He just doesn't know what to do. He's not there. That type of stuff. So like I like it. I am interested to see the rest. So I will be tuning in to this one.
What did you think when, Sarah John was having that conversation about her dad as a firefighter and like he's kind of checked out and that's why he's kind of a jerk right now in the show? It's like it was kind of an explanation to why he was like, you guys are just like city folk or whatever, to see what is happening in small rural town America and how now people are looking out for him. He is basically, the weight of that is on his shoulders. And Jordan recognizes that, oh, his dad is also a quote unquote type of firefighter who's also dealing with this stuff. Like, do you think that was a realization for him? And like, oh, I got to give him some slack because he's also saving people all the time. And, this probably weighs on him too. Or was that just a throwaway line?
I because he doesn't do the reveal until later. So I don't know if that's going to.
Well, he knows already after that.
He knows. He knows. Found out before he went to the quarry rave.
Yep. The party.
Did he?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. I didn't think I picked that up.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess because he knows that he did something different and maybe starts putting two and two together. But I think it's a neat aspect. And even that whole story element of basically you guys came from Smallville, but you don't know what's going on. Like your mother passed away. She was like the pillar of this community. Everyone went to her. And you guys are off in the city. You didn't know anything about this. So that was a neat element and flaw that that this Superman character is not. He's a dude. He moved to Metropolis. He's raising his own family. He's saving the world. And he missed out on like the things that his mother was doing in his hometown. And then the aspect of them coming back. So I think there's a lot of like elements for the show that I'm liking so far.
Shout outs to Sam Lane. He is that scene. It was super like cool where he was like, Lois, I told you before we got married, you're marrying Superman. Like you don't get a normal life. You don't get this. Like he has to like save the world. He has to do shit. Like you gotta just recognize. And she's like, nope, he's gonna stay here and do this. And he's like, yeah, shout outs to Sam Lane. He's just being awesome.
Yeah, that was cool. Walsh, he was like, I want to come see the kids or whatever, and they're just like talking like normal. I think they have created something like the Superman, the father family thing, which is I guess the Tomasi run, which I don't know, Rob or Andre might talk about a little bit more. Like I think this is a good spot to put this type of show.
Awesome. Rob, what are your thoughts? Oh God, I knew it. He was waiting for it. All right. Oh, you're
muted though.
He's muted
man.
Too, so.
The paraphrase Andrew McCarthy in Weekend at Bernie's. Loved it. I first of all, I thought of that line yesterday, and it's been in my head all weekend to make sure I said it today.
Famous director Andrew McCarthy. So that now, that's all.
I really enjoyed this episode. I know that there are going to be some critiques with respect to, you've just brought it up and John brought it up about why is the ship still there? Why isn't it in the fortress? He mentions the fortress. Why is the router in the barn?
Where is there no mention of Supergirl?
Cat in the tree scenario.
You're like, you have a cousin that also does this too. Like, where is that? Yep.
So, but here's what I really enjoyed is that, and John said, you've put him in a situation that he can't just punch his way out of. He's got he's the highest, power set, and he's dealing with things that, a lot of us are dealing with. You have, we've all been kids and we've all had difficult time trying to relate to our parents. And now that, some of us are parents and have a difficult time trying to relate to your kids. I liked, the anguish. It made him human. I mean, I think Lois says it. She goes, you're the struggles that you're having it shows that you're human. It makes him relatable to everybody who is having struggles with your kids. And it's not just a matter of, oh, my kid's just being a dick. He has, mental health issues. There's a lot of themes in this show that touch upon real world applications, real world things that are happening. You've got the mental illness. You have the small towns being deserted. I mean, when Kyle, Lana's husband, says, you're supposed to go out, learn your trade, and come back and help boost and keep a small town alive. That is very true. As somebody who grew up in a small town, that's what it was you were supposed to do. That's why small towns still were supposed to thrive. You have the issue of the subprime with the banks taking out and the money. You have the whole idea of, listen, you're watching this 2 weeks after in Canada, Bell Media just got rid of a whole number of jobs. And so you've got a newspaper, as soon as they walk into the Daily Planet, Clark Kent's being fired and everybody else is being let go. I mean, the dichotomy of the beginning of when he first sees Lois in the bustling newsroom to when they get off that elevator and there's only like 12 people in the newsroom, that's real. That actually is happening. There was just a lot of this. I mean, listen, they killed off Martha. I mean, that is something, Martha, why did you say her name? That's something that we haven't seen before. I like Tyler Hoechlin's version of Superman. I'm very glad, like when he first came on to Supergirl, I didn't really watch Supergirl, but I did watch those 2 episodes that he was in. I was like, I did not like the costume, but I thought, okay, he's all right. He's a TV Superman. But he's kind of progressed in that role, and how he has portrayed it in this episode comparative to the prior Arrowverse episodes, even the Crisis on Infinite Earth episodes and the crossovers are vastly different. Like, he's made this character more human in this portrayal than I had expected him to do. Mm-hmm. I agree with John. This is not a typical CW show. It looks like they've spent money, but not just in the special effects, but in the writing. Like, I was compelled with watching the entire, and just being like, wow, this is so relatable. I know, John, that he didn't do the stumbling Christopher Reeve stuff, but he did it in his own way. His whole, when he walks in on Jonathan and he's having that Zoom meeting with the girl, and he's like, oh, I'm so proud of you. And then he's like, oh, all right. Like, and like, that's a dad thing. Like, it spoke to me on a number of different levels that made it really accessible for me to really enjoy this way more than I anticipated. Like, I was going to watch it. I was excited for it. The trailers looked really good, but I was like, you know what? We'll see how it goes. I was more than pleasantly surprised. I really enjoyed the episode. I thought the reveal of Captain Luthor at the end, first of all, I'm not going to lie, and I'll put out what I originally thought. It would have been one of his sons from the future. I thought that was going to be the ruse, that it was a son that came back, because you have that dichotomy of, you have one son who may or may not have powers, another son that appears that he does. Maybe they split their power set. But I really kind of thought that was the guy in the armor was Captain. Was one of the sons that came back and was really pissed off and angry. But he did have that line where he said, my world exploded, my universe was no more. So obviously this is spun out of the Crisis on Infinite Earths that came on the last year in 2019, right? So I'm all in on this. This is something it's appointment viewing for me every Tuesday. I'm going to be recording it because I'm not a fan of commercials, so I'll just flip through those on the Wednesday. But this is
at first.
I was really happy. I'm really happy with how well this show has done. For me, it can only go downhill. I thought it was a fantastic first episode. And they should all be pretty proud of how much fun and great it was.
But do you like the Clark Kent part more than the Superman part?
That's interesting, because it is. Listen, I think we haven't seen Clark Kent on the screen since Christopher Reeve. We haven't seen Henry Cavill. Well, hang on. We haven't seen Henry Cavill's Clark Kent, really, right? On how he. Now, I understand, Stu, you've got Lois and Clark. Every Superman show, or every iteration of that, Superboy TV series, I was watching it and this and that. When the Lois and Clark show came out, I was like, oh, I'm cool with this. This is really good. And then as it went on that first season, I was like, I'm out. Like, it was just, I would watch it, but it was only because it was Superman. I was doing it out of fan service as opposed to because I enjoyed it. This is the first, where I'm really enjoying it, because of it didn't have to be. We didn't have 90 minutes of Superman. We had maybe 20 minutes of Superman, and the rest of it was Clark, and it was a compelling Clark. It was a relatable Clark. It was a human Clark, and it was something that I quite enjoyed. I loved all the Easter eggs. I loved the Fleischer costume. I loved that when Clark is sitting there and he's watching behind the board. It was the doctor one with Dr. Donner, and then they have a Christopher Reeve notion in there. There was just tons of like this little mini Easter eggs, appointment for Siegel and Schuster. Yep. It was great. It was just a lot of things that were in there that were, peppered with past iterations, including the comics. And I have the Lois and Clark trade behind me. I don't know if Andre was going to mention this or not, but like if we've mentioned this before, I brought it up before, but if people haven't read this, definitely contact the shop and see if you can get it, because this is, you know, you can tell that there is some DNA from this baked into the show that we just saw. This is by Dan Jurgens.
To Rob's point, please, if you can, watch with commercials. That's how they, you know, pay for media and why people don't get fired. But, you know, Rob, whatever. You just gloss that over. How are you going to know about Fabricland if you just jump over these commercials? Watch the commercials, embrace them, because this is how people get paid. And this is why media has changed the landscape, because too many people skirting the process. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Anyways, Andre, please, to you, your thoughts.
Yeah, so I didn't watch.
I'm very interested to hear Andre's opinion.
Yeah, we're all kind of interested.
Everyone's like waiting for it. Like,
yeah. I've been like waiting this whole time. I hope.
I have questions for Andre already followed up, but yes, Andre, I want you to go.
I didn't watch a lot of the CW shows outside of Arrow and Flash. Like I tried to watch the first Supergirl, and I know I'm harsh, but when she said Kryptonese, I was out. You know, like I was just like, nope, can't do this, right? And if you guys don't know, well, you guys probably know, but for you listening, my favorite superhero is Superman.
Luke Skywalker.
I think for me, I had to temper expectations right away on this because it was CW. I didn't enjoy Smallville. John will tell you that. And I'm a comic book guy. Like I've loved Superman, you know, since the late 80s, like, you know, since and so it's very, very hard for me to distance what I know and like about a character and be like, this character on the screen is going to be different than the one that I know or the iterations that I have followed on comic books. So first impression was 5 o'clock shadow Superman in the ads. I'm like, this guy's not Superman. I don't know who this guy is, but this guy is not Superman. But that's just from a still picture. Like I said, I didn't watch any other stuff. So watching this first episode, getting in, I'm like, okay, I'm glad that he wasn't 5 o'clock Superman in it, and he looked decent in the costume. But I will say that I think he looked more of the Clark Kent to me. That being said, after about the first 5 minutes, I literally did that. Turn off your brain, turn off all that you want Superman to be, because Superman to me is the big farm boy. He's 6'something, he's huge, he's stacked, he's got a slouch, you know, but this guy looks like accountant Superman, right? Like he had the glasses, which I did like his different take on glasses, but he just was too, you know, just didn't do it for me. But his portrayal, I think he's going to get better or get closer to the Superman that I want to see. For the show, we've said it. I think John and Rob both said it. The visuals, and it looks better than any CW show. And they are trying a different angle. Obviously, the two kids, knowing that they are trying to do something totally different. I'm not going to give them props for that, because I think what you should do is do what works. And you have to be able to buy or believe in the character that you get. So for me, there's no way that Superman Clark Kent is a bad father. Just can't. I can't believe that. He was raised by the best man, period. Right. And that man,
Andre, the problem
let me finish,
is that...
Rob. Let me finish, please. Let me just get there. I'll get there. I know what you're going to say. The thing is that he was raised by this person, and Superman is the person that he is because of the that his parents gave him. They took him in. They could have left him to die and all that. And I think that is so at the core of his character that I can't buy that it would have gotten to this part. Now, at the end of the episode where he sits on the step and he holds his son, I'm like, okay, he's not going to be a bad father. They've glazed over it. Now he's got to teach his kid or whatever. But at that particular moment, them saying that he can't connect with his kids, I didn't believe it. I don't know if you guys remember the podcast where I said we were talking about the J.J. Abrams Spider-Man comic, and Peter Parker had a kid and just left the kid with Aunt May. I'm like, no, Peter was an orphan. He lost his father. He's not doing that. Or in my world, I cannot buy that. So all the stuff Rob said makes perfect sense. People who are fathers, they're going to have that connection. There's a lot of things to be connected. And I know there's a lot of struggles with parents, especially with teens. Everybody's like, oh my God, did I raise a good kid? When they get to the teens, I don't want to lose that. So I do understand why they did it. I just had a very hard time stumbling and getting over that particular part of it. The barn, some of the bad writing, but again, it's CW. Like I couldn't expect better. I was just like, I wanted better, and I think they almost had it. Like, especially when they did those moments where the Lois, not Lois, Lana and the husband, they were like really chiding in on them. I like that. Like, that felt, that I thought it was a very real conversation, but not the right time to have the conversation. Right. So again, I think there's some of those things that they didn't put together right. But some of the things just stopped me cold. Like the very first nuclear reactor scene, General Lane drives in. This thing's going critical. Why are you driving in, bro, as a general? What are you going to do? You drove in. He's like, it's going to get all the way to Metropolis. I guess if it was going to get to Metropolis, everybody would have been dead anyways. But it just seemed kind of just a little bit silly. So I wish they would have thought about how you get these characters to these places in different moments. I will say I did like, jumping back and forth a little bit, I did like that moment where he hears his mom and flies back and she died. But for me, again, my Superman, he is so close to being omnipotent that his humanity holds him back. And again, those moments, I love those moments where he hears somebody's heartbeat in the comics, or when Oliver Queen yelled his name and he just jetted. He's like, I hear fear in his voice. I would have loved this moment for him to get there on time, but not be able to do anything about it. Meaning she would have still died, but he got there, and I just feel that there was even a little bit of that disconnect when he's talking to her on the phone. It just seemed a little bit like that she's not the center of his world. Like I think in Man of Steel with Diane Lane and Cavell, I think they really nailed that relationship, and stuff. But again, I'm trying to get over the fact that it is different. So overall, I did enjoy the first episode. I think, as CW shows go, this one's up there. This is the second CW show that I've watched and enjoyed. Like we talked about Batwoman. I think they are getting better. I think they're breaking their mold of making the same show just with different characters. They're trying to make different statements. So hopefully, as they find their feet, they'll get going. As for the Captain Luthor part, I didn't know who the character was, but I was, and again, going back as wanting Superman to be powerful, to me, he used his powers a little bit too late in the fight. And again, I don't buy any suit of armor that stops Superman. But again, I don't know this Superman's power set. This is me going in. Like, to me, when the guy's flying away at the beginning, I'm like, why don't you heat vision him or breathe and cover up his jets? Like, it's just a suit of armor, right? And stuff. So, again, not knowing where this villain guy is, to me, getting to Kryptonite in the first episode seemed like a little bit much, but we'll see.
Andre, quickly to jump into your thoughts. We mentioned months ago on a previous podcast about inclusion, and you're concerned that considerably more often than not, a person of color is the bad guy. And it looks to be that the bad guy is a person of color. So
that's what I thought too, but I didn't know that I thought the back of the head looked like it was a black guy, but then when they said Captain Luthor, I didn't know. So now again, I don't know that show. If he is a black guy, then he's a black guy.
Probably
There's
an individual who was cast.
So Captain Luther is a black guy. Yeah. So again, I don't think that's necessarily the best message to send. And again, you want to have some diversity, and you want to show people of all things, nationalities, races, genders, and stuff like that.
In the main cast, like in the town itself, like cast, Smallville is actually quite diverse. If you look at the people in the town.
They did show a couple people. I was going to say, like the paramedic, they did have some people.
And Lana is clearly not just pure Caucasian. Like Lana Lang is something. She is a mix, and her kid is a mix of something.
There's like a paramedic or a firefighter, right?
Yeah.
Who's like,
there's a firefighter who's black, and then somebody else
covering for them. I felt like he was like covering.
No,
I don't.
No,
I didn't.
No one seems, because Lana didn't know, so that's a different change too.
Yeah,
Lana would have known before.
Yeah,
Lana's like, oh, Clark just never got like Pete drove one time, and we're like, again, that's
actually that kind of threw me off. Like, while I didn't mind the actress that played Lana, like to me, it
Unionville's own Andre. Unionville's
somebody, right?
Yeah,
she was Sloan. She was Sloan in Entourage.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Emmanuel Chiriki. She's from Union. She's from here. She probably, at one point maybe strolled into your store. You never knew. So probably to buy some stuff. Yeah.
I do think it should have almost been the opposite, where Lana is like more of the bombshell than Lois.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it would have been funny if Lois says, oh, Lana's here, this is his old flame, and she'd be kind of jealous or whatever. But anyways,
Lois is never jealous of anyone. Lois,
I know Lois
Lois doesn't care.
Is Lois. Actually, it's funny because I don't see. I think this actress probably looks more the part than the actress who played Lois in Man of Steel, but she's still not hitting the Lois vibe for me.
Fair enough.
So
I just wanted to.
Yeah, sorry, Rob. Just before you jump in about Lois,
she came off
or
as
unless
powerful,
you want to talk about Lois, I think I was talking to my wife about it, and I know people are griping about Lois not having much to do in the show, but Lois does a lot in this show with minimal time. She's strong, she's confident, she has connections, she loves her family, she loves Clark, like she's willing to sacrifice, like everything is just a Lois Lane type. You just didn't have enough time because you had to introduce Jordan and Jonathan and Sam, and so I think we're going to get more of her, Andre. She's such a character that we already know, so we don't have to spend much time on episode 1, at least, on like who Lois. We know Lois Lane. She's like, oh, you're the greatest reporter. It's like, boom, we got that. You're the best in your profession. Boom, you're a great mom. Like, boom, like you call people and be like, let me look into this, and like what she stands for in terms of like looking out for the little person. Like everything is kind of laid out for just very concise and to the point, and then we'll probably get more of her going forward. But it was like she did everything she had to do in the short time she had. So because again, this episode was more about the boys, Jordan and Jonathan, because you have to establish who they are, and Superman. So it's like,
I liked how she came off. I thought it was
good. I just wanted to, Andre was, I guess Andre, what I was getting from what you were saying is that you're concerned that Clark is not a bad dad. He was raised by the most wholesome parents in the world and the Kents. It doesn't matter how good of a dad you are, that you are rife with self-doubt every day about whether or not you're a good dad. There is no manual on how to raise kids, and how you treat your kids when they're 6 is not how you treat them when they're 10 or when they're 12, and how you interact with them. I would like to think I'm a good dad, but I have these same conversations with my wife that Clark and Lois in this episode had, because I'm always rife with self-doubt. When I say something to my kids and they roll their eyes or they walk away or they ignore me, and I'm just like, what am I doing wrong? And it's not me. I'm not the bad dad. There's a variable out there. And
bad kids.
It's the kids are pricks. No, but the variable.
Rob, can you share the story about the shared story?
No, just send me a message. He says you're all right.
Can you share the story of your encounter of your son before he went to bed? That was great.
So I think it was actually it was last night, maybe the night before. It was late. It was like 11:30, and I was like, buddy, it's bedtime. And he's like, yeah, fine. And I was like, okay, good night. And I said good night, and he goes, bye. And I was like, have a good sleep. He goes, yep. And I was like, okay, I love you. And he goes, okay, bye. Like, it was like as if
it's hilarious, by the way.
If I'm keeping him on the phone too long, he's like, okay, Dad, bye. I gotta go. Like, he's like, yeah, okay, bye. Right. I mean, at that point, I've expected him to like, you know, to smush out his Marlboro and finish one last swig. And, you know, like the way he was just talking. I mean, he's 12 years old, but I mean, that's the variable that we as parents, unfortunately, we have no control over. And it's dealing with kids throughout their entire life. And so,
and especially for a parent, especially Andre, for a parent like Clark, who has to leave all the time for reporting gigs. And he's like, if you're Superman, you're constantly fighting stuff. You're not home that often. So when are you able to do stuff?
I get it. So Rob, I wasn't trying to take away from that. I understand.
Andre, I think the thing is his intentions are true. But like, that's why the Lois and him were talking about, when you have thoughts of a kid, you think things are going to go one way. And then sometimes they go another direction.
But so the moment, like, I guess what I'm saying is that it really, to me in the show, you know, and I think he even said it, he felt disconnected from Jordan, right? And stuff like that. So I just, like I said, for me, it's hard for me to buy that he would let it get.
He didn't try harder to get.
I think he tried, but I respect Superman, because Superman at any point can just listen to his son anytime, any place, and be like, what are they doing? But the fact that he's not eavesdropping says a lot about a parent. Is like, I'm not spying on my kid either, because he could be spying on him all the time.
And they did say that the child had the
social
anxiety social disorders, but also too, it was almost like, you know, when he said, oh, Clark, you missed your meeting with him and stuff like that. Like, I don't think he would do that. Like, these are his kids. Like,
but you're being told, but Andre, you're being told,
like, he wouldn't be, I forgot. He would be like, I want to go, but I can't make it because
I'm saving the world from a typhoon.
But I think,
or fighting Gorilla Grodd.
So many directions as a parent, it's exhausting. And by the end of the day, listen, the other day, my daughter said, I want to play memory game, and I was like, you know, I had a full day of work. I was doing stuff for the dog. I'm tired. Like, I just want my time. I want to chill. I want to play some Fortnite. I want to kill John on Fortnite. Let me do this. And she was like, but I want to play. And it's like, you're constantly disappointing them. Like, you're missing things. And that's just because there's only so much time, and you're only human.
I get it,
but he's Superman.
Right?
But again, yes, he's Superman. But he's Superman. But
being Superman, though, doesn't give you a different skill set as a parent.
It does.
That's what it doesn't.
Again, but Rob, that's for you. Like, I'm saying, this is a guy that you know, again, for my favorite readings of Superman and how I extrapolate where that would be, I don't see that happening. I think this is that type where he's married Lois, they have twins, there is a change, so Lois doesn't have to tell him to put the family first. It's great that it happened in this show, but in my eyes, in my mindset for this character, he is going to move mountains,
but Andre,
in order for his kid to be. But I don't want to use the word normal, but in order to be like, once there was any, in my eyes, once there would have been any issue with Jordan, I think he would have been like, my son needs me. I'm not giving him something that he needs.
But Andre, then
that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying the
show is that if that was the case. Like, we have to put this in there. Then there's no TV show. Like, you need to put this in there, because the same reason, why would you stay in a haunted house, Andre? We have this conversation every time. Well, you get money. Well, I don't want to stay in a haunted house overnight because that's stupid. But you're going to do it because
right. This is kind of a different version of Superman. Yeah. It's not.
You need it for conflict for a TV show.
This version, though. We haven't seen this version.
Yeah, it's different. Yeah,
but that's what I'm saying. But
that's all he's saying. It's different.
Look, that's what I'm saying. So I said that it's a different version. It's just, do I buy this version? And again, part of me doesn't. Yeah. So here's the thing: like, if this is what it takes for some people to connect to Superman,
relate,
then fine, that's it. But to me, he's already a relatable character because I've read him for God almost 30 plus years. Right.
I think, probably Andre, we have to step away from this as non-parents. To those who are parents at home,
but
this does not reflect the views of that. Like, this is your thing. So, like, I think we need.
But there's a version of Superman, and we've seen it. Me and Andre have been selling the Superman comics for I don't know how many years, and there is a disconnect from the the perfect Superman, so maybe they go with this flawed version that's
but see that's
yeah. So
that's
I have a problem, I guess, is he's not flawed. Him being a parent doesn't make him flawed. That it's the mind, like that's where I think that's the heart of this, is that makes it relatable to people, to say he's not flawed, and yet everything he does is never going to be right, because he can't. You can't be, listen, how many doctors do we know who are on call and they miss things because they have a job to do and they can't be there? Like, I know of a couple of friends of mine who are doctors who are, it's like, that's just the reality, is that no matter how hard you try, no matter what you do, you're sometimes going to miss the soccer game. You're sometimes going to miss an appointment. There's nothing, your job sometimes isn't flexible to allow you to attend these things. And you know what? And it sucks and it hurts and you could see the disappointment on his own face. He was like, man, but we're only human. And in that moment, Clark is only human, and there's only so much he can do. And if he's rescuing so-and-so from a building or a cat or moving mountains, as you said, and he has to get back for his son's appointment, then it makes it not relatable. And as me as a viewer I can be like, great, so he makes every appointment. I don't understand what that's like. So that's all I'm saying, is that I think, and I understand what you're saying, Andre, and I respect that opinion, but you're right. This is a different Superman. It's not one that we've ever had before, but I'm glad that they're writing him in a manner that's super approachable to anybody and can understand what it's like to be.
And this is really more relatable to those who have kids, because this is the struggle you go through. Like, you can have the best intentions and it's not always the case. So I agree with you, Andre. We get your point. It's different, but
no, for sure.
No
I'm not saying one is, right or wrong or better or worse, but there were, for the instances that they chose to show on the television show, we have seen moments in the comic book that have addressed some of these things. But
this is divergent from the comic book, because Jordan doesn't exist in the comic book.
No, I understand. I understand that 100%. So, but yeah, anyways.
Are you going to watch episode 2? Like, are you in on this, or are you done?
You know what? I'll probably give it a couple of episodes to see, and stuff. But again, as it is my favorite character, there's only going to be so much digression I can take. And I think that if people need to see not the right word, so forgive my choice of the language, a less perfect Superman, then at a certain point I'd be like, well, why not just make this, create a other superhero and do those things, like Invincible show's coming out, and I'm not saying they do this in Invincible, but it's about a guy who's got Superman like powers, but it's bloody and violent and all that. Well, if you want your Superman to be bloody and violent, you don't want Superman, go and watch / read Invincible. So if you want Superman who, can't do X, Y, Z, P, and Q, then maybe it's not Superman that you want. And that's fine. So I can choose whether or not I can take my Superman baggage and put it off to the side and enjoy this show for what it is. And I can't say right now if that's going to happen. I will probably watch another episode or two. I'm curious now to see how they make out the Captain Luthor and see how that is. But this episode did not make me endure enough of the CW Infinite Earth to go and watch all those other things. Like nothing can make me sit.
Well, they didn't mention any of the other stuff, Andre. They never mentioned Supergirl once, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
This is its own thing.
No, I know, but I'm just saying, if this other Captain Luthor character, if they don't give him an origin, and I have to go and watch that other stuff
and watch the multiverse.
No, it's not. So because it's happening in Smallville, it's a different thing. So let's just jump to one more thing about this topic, because as you know, there was news before the show even came out that kind of cast a dark cloud, and we're not sure where this is. I think it's something we should think about. When Nadia Tucker was a writer for Lois and Superman and Lois, and her contract was not renewed for a second season. So she went on social media to basically said that, that she wasn't being renewed and her services were no longer needed. And basically she disagreed with a lot of the writers on the show and the showrunner about, jokes about the Bechdel test and about, black faces and people of color on the show. And she kept on saying, where are the strong female, characters of color? Like, she went on a kind of a whole thing about why you know, she was pitching stories for female leaders, female characters, and they were ignored. She does, you know, highlight that she does sound bitter on these things, but again, you know, she's not saying it was bad for her colleagues, and she knows she's not nuts but she basically said, we talk a lot about the Me Too movement and what it is, and for her personal experience writing on the show, nothing changed. So it'll be interesting to see that context of like strong women, people of color in the series, because if there is none, then it will definitely speak to why, you know, her comments and why she wasn't brought back, because she is a person of color on the writers' room that was let go from her contract. But so we'll see. Anyways, I just wanted to say that. Anyone have any particular thoughts on that before we jump over?
No, I'm not familiar with her work per se, but it does seem odd if she was the only one let go from, like, maybe they had to downsize the whole writing room and 3 other people got let go, or 2 other people got let go.
She said that they told her that her scripts and stuff were not up to par. So yeah.
So it that's going to be tough, because there could be a technical aspect to her scripts that they weren't heading. Mm-hmm. However, if her scripts she was always trying to move forward and say, oh, hey, we should have the people of color do stuff because we're not representing that. And if they let her go for that, then that kind of sucks, because look, it's 2021. We have to write these things in. People need to see positive role models of people of different races on television, not just for people who look like them, but there's a whole bunch of other people in this world that never get to interact with people of color, and they only think of them as the stereotypes, or maybe they see, oh, well, I only see, you know, my sports figures are people of color, so is that how all of them act, or is that how all of them sound, or do all of them own convenience stores, do all of them do this? So we need to show, and if the writers' room is not taking that into account, then I think that's a disservice. Like, I don't want to, you know, throw the CW under the bus, because obviously they have a market, and they have a target market, and you could go through, like, I could tell you the number of shows where you literally have a cast and it's 97.5% white people, token black person in every 4th or 5th episode. You might get somebody who quasi looks Asian if you're lucky, more so Latino, but maybe they're going to argue that that's their audience. We're targeting this, but I think they can do better, and I think they should strive to do better. And it's not like you're going to include people who have less talent because you're ticking off a race box. You just have to say, hey, we can write a story and put it in. So if it's in Smallville, who cares if the technical real life population of Smallville, Kansas is not diverse? It's not going to kill you to say, oh, hey, look, there are black people. Hey, look, there are brown people. Hey, look, there are people of Hispanic descent. There's Asian people.
I think she mentioned it's not just background characters. It's like guest stars and other characters. Like, so
I just from a technical standpoint, I don't want to get too into this, but every writer on that series, their contracts weren't necessarily renewed. When you come in the writer's room, they had 15 episodes. They hashed out a storyline. They wrote the episodes, and then generally, a writer's room is kind of let go. Then it goes on to production, and you might have a few writers. You know, you get brought back in just to kind of oversee stuff or do some draft updates. But for the most part, everybody's contracts are never renewed. You don't get brought back in until the following season. Sometimes you find a job elsewhere. Sometimes they bring in different writers. So all I'm saying from a technical standpoint, I don't know that she was fired. It's just that her contract wasn't renewed. Well, she has complaints, and I'm not addressing that. I'm just addressing the fact that, you know, the contracts, she said her contract wasn't renewed, but none of the writers' contracts were renewed. In an age of COVID, they didn't even know how long they're going to be able to shoot. She said
specifically on personal news, Wednesday, I got word that my contract as Superman and Lois would not be extended. My services no longer needed. My outlines and draft subpar. Obviously, I disagree with that last bit.
Well, sure, but it wasn't going to be renewed or extended. But none of the writers, they don't have a season 2.
We don't know. To Andre's point, We don't know the rest of the team, but if she was maybe the only one, then
I agree.
That's different. Okay. So nonetheless, I think that's something to review for the rest of the season to think about, because that's something that is a dark cloud. But on a separate dark cloud note to some of us on this panel, word broke Friday that our boy J.J. Abrams, the savior of all saviors, the man who just constantly comes in like The Rock to save Star Trek, Star Wars, who signed this big deal with Warner Brothers, is working on a Superman movie. He is here like Loki, arms out. Here is your savior. But he is working with a very talented writer, Ta-Nehisi Coates. I'm probably saying that incorrect, so I apologize. I want everyone's quick thoughts on this news that dropped on Friday. John?
Yeah, so we're talking about like Superman, like reboot, something completely new.
We have no idea what it is. It could be a new Superman. It could be Black Superman. It could be anything at this time. But the internet is rampant on thoughts on what.
Yeah, I remember there was some Michael B. Jordan rumors before, but yeah, like
John's not opposed to Michael B. Jordan.
Yeah. I assume Abrams gets his name slapped on a lot of things just because he's where the money comes from. So who knows how involved he's going to be? Yeah, well. Like the director of the whole, like the movie.
Is he
like,
the director or producer?
No, he's producing. It's Bad Robots.
Bad Robot, right?
He's producing.
He could direct.
If he's got a producer credit, I question how involved he is because his name's on everything. But Ta-Nehisi Coates, I think. I don't know what the
Ta-Nehisi, yeah.
Always butcher everybody's name. He did Black Panther, right? And I think he's doing the current Captain America run, if I'm not mistaken. Yep. I actually quite like the Black Panther. I wasn't feeling because he goes to like space, and I'm like, I don't know about this. But his Captain America run, I think it's a very kind of underrated book. So, and Captain America is a very Superman-like character. So I think he could do a good job with it. That's my just initial thoughts, and I'm always down for, like Andre said, like more Superman stuff, and maybe they'll have the different Supermans representing all the different ones that we want to see. So I'm in.
All right, Rob.
Listen, I'm happy when there's news of a Superman. You're right. They don't. There's no indication if this is a reboot or remake, a starting off point with new characters. He did say that he's excited to be brought into the DCEU. So that was his statement. So one can infer that maybe, and I hope Cavill gets to come back. I would love to see Cavill back as Superman. There's a lot of people online who are very, and I'm going to use the word scared, and I don't know why, scared that it's going to be like a Michael B. Jordan or the different iterations of different multiverse Superman coming in. I have no position on that. I just want it to be good. I want a good Superman story. The people who make these comments, you still have Man of Steel, you still have Christopher Reeve, like you still have that. So don't worry about what's coming in. The one thing I do want to highlight though is that it seems that DC is very intent on, and I think they should be at least commended on expanding their diversity in their casting choices, and we just talked about this with the Superman and Lois controversy, but they're bringing in writers, they're bringing in directors, they're bringing in they're casting against type. J.J. Abrams is doing a for HBO Max, a Constantine reboot, and they are going to be redoing the character to be a character of a different nationality, not Caucasian. So DC seems to be leading the charge over Marvel when it comes to doing this. So I think I'm all for it. I want to get a good Superman movie. I love Man of Steel. We'll talk about more of that later. But I want another good Superman movie. But I would love to see Cavill back. Me personally, I just would. So.
Yeah, I to your point, before I get to Andre, because Andre, I want him to gather his thoughts quickly. I'm never a fan of just changing a character just for the sake of diversity. Like I'd rather to introduce a new character. Like I love Wally West, and when they change it, I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And now they're kind of written themselves in a weird corner where Wally West is now two Wally Wests from different. I would rather them just create a new character. Like when they did a new female Thor, they just didn't change Thor. They're like, Jane Foster is it. When they did Miss Captain Marvel, like we're going to create a brand new character of that background rather than just get rid of an established character. I think DC does more of that than anyone else, which is like, we're just going to gender or race bend whatever we want to fit the narrative of what we want to do, rather than, why don't you just create a new character? Can we just have someone new? Like,
you went on mute. We can't hear you. We lost your audio.
Andre, go ahead.
Oh, there you are.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah. So I think couple things make me hesitant on this, and it's the J and the J, right? J.J. Abrams, like, I don't know too many people who have a legit favorite movie that's a J.J. Abrams movie.
Oh, right? Okay, but in all fairness, he's only done like 3 or 4.
Mission Impossible.
Mission Impossible 3.
Yep.
There's 2 Star Trek movies.
Yep.
And well, then I guess so
what
5,
about Super 8 and
Super 8, and he didn't direct that.
Nope, he didn't correct that one. Nope.
Super. But isn't it not Super? What any? The one where
he did
Cam.
Yeah, that
Cloverfield was not JJ.
Cloverfield is not
it wasn't
JJ.
Nope.
Oh, it's just Bad Robot.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So J.J. Abrams.
Yeah, he didn't direct that. He's only directed 5. He's only directed 5 movies: 2 Star Trek, 2 Star Wars, and Mission Impossible 3. Now he did direct the pilot for Lost. He directed the pilot for Alias.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But for TV shows.
Of those movies,
3, Star Trek. Movies, he did direct Super 8. Sorry, he did direct Super 8.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
And he directed 2 Star Wars movies.
I didn't like Force Awakens. The Star Trek movies brought in new fans, but if you ask like diehard Star Trek fans, they aren't a fan of it. So I hope he doesn't have too much to do with this, Superman project, and it's a reboot. But that's because, I'm on record saying, like anybody else could have done Star Wars, and now look where Star Wars is. Yes, some people like where the new trilogy went, but there's probably more who didn't.
So that's an understatement, Andre.
So on the Ta-Nehisi Coates, he's a great writer. Like this, he's a powerful writer for this time. He's written some great comics. I think his comics are very underrated, but even better than his comics are his books. Social commentary, very good. I'm very interested in what he can do for Superman. I will speak to the people who are afraid that, it's going to be Michael B. Jordan Superman or whatever. It probably is going to be a black Superman. But guess what? DC's got a movie coming out called The Flash where they're doing a multiverse. So whatever this Superman is, it's not going to replace Superman. Also, go back and read Action Comics by Grant Morrison, where he introduced a black Superman and he was the president of the United States. And it was a cool alternate take on the character. It's going to be probably a multiverse thing. There's no way in hell that DC, Warner Brothers, AT&T, whatever, have the balls to go forward and make Superman black. No way. So for all those people panicking about it, you've got nothing to worry about. This is going to be a alternate multiverse tale. Maybe they'll end up doing a collaboration where all the Supermans unite to fight Super
Cal Zod or something. That's the Superman. That's the black Superman or something. Yeah.
So
there's 2 of them, right?
So anyways, I think there's a lot of positive to it. I just wish it wasn't Abrams, but that's just me personally. I'm not a fan of his stuff. So I hope it's just his name slapped on it, like John said. But if Warner paid all this money to get Abrams and Bad Robot, they're going to want to put him on their flagship character and flagship movie. And I will say I am 100% in agreement with all the people online saying fans have been asking for Man of Steel 2. Let Cavill get a proper Superman role where he can play Clark Kent and Superman. Give him that movie. He deserves it. What a trooper, doing these other movies, not really getting to shine and stuff like that. And I think if they fail to do that, which they probably won't, they've really missed an opportunity to not only have a genuinely excited person playing the role, but probably wants to put even more of his mark on the character. He's only played one side of the coin. He hasn't had the chance to really dive into the Clark Kent. And I do really believe that I've said it. He's probably my favorite Superman, right? We talked about it in our other podcast where we go over our favorite Superman and stuff. And I think I wish he could get the chance. So if he doesn't get a proper Man of Steel 2, maybe they do the multiverse thing and he shows up in this movie. I can cross my fingers and hope.
Any other final thoughts before we jump over to again, this is so early in the process.
Yeah, who knows? It's all speculation.
Yeah, and to Rob, to your point, you brought up a few times that as your writer, that could be you're the first writer that gets a crack, and then by the end it could be, you know,
somebody else,
William Zabka, who did the final rewrite. We don't know. That's a thing.
Well, we can know it probably won't be Joss Whedon.
Very fair.
Yeah,
very fair.
Yeah, there we go. That's pretty much about it.
Yeah, he won't be script doctoring this movie.
No, under a different pseudonym. Maybe Kevin Smith will write, you know, as under a different name because you know.
Okay.
So
you're right there, Stu.
Yeah, some weird technical difficulties. Okay, so Andre, I have spoken. This is your time to shine before we.
All right, sorry for the delay, folks. I have spoken. So we talked a lot about Superman this episode, and I'm really happy because I get to talk about, again, my favorite superhero. And everybody needs to go out and pick up Superman Rebirth Volume 1, written by Peter Tomasi and art by Patrick Gleason. This is a tale where the Superman that we know is brought back, replacing the Superman from the New 52 universe, and he has a young son named Jonathan Kent. And Jonathan Kent is right at that point where he starts manifesting powers, but we get to see the Superman, and for me, it's the logical progression. This is a Superman who, once Lois had the child, he stayed with his family, got out of the superhero game, but in this new world, they needed a superhero, so Superman died, and this Superman steps up and says the world can't have a superhero, dons the cape again, and at the same time now has to teach his young son all about power and responsibility. An amazing run on this book, cut short unfortunately because Bendis came on to Superman, so they did a reboot. But DC's Rebirth Superman titles, I think there's 4 trades in total under the Tomasi and Patrick Gleason run. Hands down, the best Superman in years. So that's my I have spoken moment. But I will just leave it that if anybody is also looking for any other Superman recommendations, if you are going to say to me, I don't like Superman, he's a Boy Scout, yada, 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 hit me up in the comments and I'm going to recommend you a great Superman book. He might not have as many great stories as Batman, but he is definitely a ton, and he is the world's greatest superhero.
Okay, so thank you so much.
And they're doing an omnibus version of the run that Andre mentioned.
Even
end
better.
of May. End of May, omnibus of the entire run. I think.
Yeah, that's great. John, Andre, where can people find you guys on the interwebs?
Yeah, so the new website is up and kicking. It is all being rerouted to Heroes World Online. So now you can find everything just by doing Heroes World Online on the website, Heroes World Online on Instagram, Heroes World Online on Facebook. And if you're on the YouTube here, please subscribe and get at us in the comments. And you can message us through any of those means. There's email through the website, messages, Facebook Messenger, whatever you guys want. You can get at us, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible.
Yeah, let us know, as John said. Share your thoughts on the Superman and Lois episode. Share your thoughts on WandaVision and your thoughts on J.J. Abrams. I'd love to find some J.J. Abrams stands out there. Andre,
or hit up Andre for some good Superman recommendations.
Andre,
yes. So now we are finally out of is it called the red zone we're out of? Anyway,
no, you're in the red zone.
Sorry,
into the gray zone.
We're out of gray
gray
and
zone.
into red, which is so weird. Doesn't red sound worse than gray? Gray sounds like
100%.
Yes.
So
Uncle Doug
Star Trek never says gray alert. They always red alert.
Yeah,
true.
Uncle Doug just tries to confuse people because he's
Uncle Doug. Yeah, is he like the just dumb uncle that nobody?
He's the drunk
wants
uncle that we all know, and you're like, oh, that's drunk Uncle Doug, and you're like, just don't be alone with him in a room, and you're like, that's it.
True.
Okay. Before we get loaded for slander.
No. In terms of like, he'll corner you and tell you weird stories about how him and his other brother used to sell drugs and how you can sell drugs too.
All right.
So
allegedly.
Yeah.
All right. So
allegedly,
we are back in the red zone. So that means you can now come into the store. So we will be open throughout the week this week, almost back to regular hours. We'll be there Tuesday from about noon to 6, almost noon to 6 every day. We're still going to keep with the Sundays off for now so we can bring you this podcast and other goodness.
Mr.
Let me tell you where the store is, because just in case, our store is conveniently located at 8601 Warden Avenue. That's Warden Highway 7 in Markham, Ontario, and that's just across Steele. So we're not far from Toronto. So come up and see us. Lots of free parking, lots of other amenities in the plaza too.
Rob.
Yeah, actually, I was just at the store yesterday, and like an episode of Nip Tuck, you guys are in the midst of redesigning it again. So I'm excited to see it. It looks really good thus far. You can find me online on Instagram and Twitter at Rob Gadet. You can also, it's so interesting that we're talking about Superman today, because tomorrow on the Heroes World Sidekick Show at 8 o'clock on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch, we are revisiting Zack Snyder's Man of Steel. We are leading up the countdown to the Snyder Justice League. So this week we are doing Man of Steel. Next week it'll be Batman versus Superman, and the week after that will be the Whedon version of Justice League. But please join John and I live tomorrow as we count down the road to Snyder's Justice League with Man of Steel. Rewatch it. It's on Netflix Canada right now. So if you're watching this on Sunday or Monday morning, don't worry about work on Monday. I'll write a letter for your boss. Watch Man of Steel and join us. It won't do anything. I'll just write the letter for you. Join us as we rewatch and review Man of Steel.
Yeah, and for those who are Nip Tuck fans, that's both Dr. Doom and Sam Lane. So let's not forget those two gems. So thank you all for sticking with us. This was a long one. We had lots of thoughts and different things. Again, be safe out there. We'll see you all next week, and support local. Go to your local stores, whatever it is. Don't go to big boxes. Don't go to big stores. Go small. Help them out whatever way you can, even if it's buying a small coffee, donut, one comic, a toy, whatever it is. Support local. So thank you so much for listening. See you all later. Goodbye, everyone.
All right,
thanks, guys.